Welcome back. We're still sticking with issues bordering on our assessment of the judiciary in 2019. Three senior advocates share their opinions with Law Weekly.
At the commencement of the legal year 2019-2020, we had about over 100,000 cases in the dockets of the Federal High Court across the country. And how many judges do we have there? Just barely about 80. This is cases that are pending, not cases that are filed. So now, a judge sits there, he's going to deal with aviation. He's going to deal with some criminal matters, dealing with NAPTIC, EFCC, ICPC, all sorts of cases, electoral litigation. And at the end of the day, they will say the judiciary is not doing enough. So it's a lot of pressure. There's no light. There are no working tools. There's no adequate support staff, if there is at all. So you find that if we want to be fair to ourselves, the judges that dispense justice, they work under terrible conditions. Because I was Attorney General in this state, and I know what I saw. It was very pathetic, I must tell you. So we started trying to change things here. And it continued, and it's still continuing. So I believe that for things to work, all of us must put our hands together and be on the same page. Now, another thing is the lawyers themselves don't help. Because lawyers who litigate before the court, with due respect, many of them, they like to file frivolous applications. You know, when your client comes to you and say, oh, I want to file this case, I want to file that case, it is in the place of the lawyer to say, look, you have no good case. There's no way I can file this case. But the lawyers will use their ingenuity and file all sorts of processes. And you know, the courts, they have no means, they have no machinery of stopping a lawyer from initiating processes. When a case is an abuse of process, all that the court can do is to take it out of the court. The court cannot tell you never to file a case again. Even if they do, you will still go and file a case, you know, except that if it gets so bad, they can then take you for disciplinary action also. I may refer you to the body of bench disciplinary committee.
The judiciary has not fared too well, particularly because they have not been able to assert their independence. The judiciary is the third arm of the government. It should be independent and should be able to stand up as one of the tripod. There are three. So the executive has its powers, the legislature has its powers. Well, likewise, the judiciary has its powers. But I honestly believe that the judiciary has been so much battered that the judges are not ready to stand up to the executive and assert their own independence. This is typified by the fact that the executive, as a matter of recklessness, fails to obey court orders, and no sanction has followed ever since. It's such a shame. I think, I mean, like any reasonable person, you might want to say that it's probably they're tainted. Maybe the judiciary itself is tainted and they cannot stand up. Maybe they themselves are not upright and they are fearing what the executive can bring up against them. I don't know. I mean, it's like the judiciary has been whipped into silence. They have been jackbooted. They have, I mean, it's like washed clean. It's like they've trampled on the judiciary. It's like the executive actually trampled on the judiciary. So everybody seems to be cautious that, well, let me stay within my own framework and just do what I can do. But I don't think that is healthy for this country. The judiciary is the last hope of everybody. And if the judiciary cannot stand up to say what it is to the executive or to the legislature, then we all we're walking in the shadows.
once court orders are made and the government itself does not obey the orders, it means the government is inviting anarchy, because by extension, the citizens will rise up one day and say orders were made. The government itself did not obey it, so why would they obey it? People pay their taxes, meet their responsibilities because of obedience of law, abiding by the rule of law. So if the government itself becomes lawless and refuses to abide by the rule of law and comply with court orders, the citizens may have the tendency to react. And if the citizens react in a similar way, then the government itself, that will be the major arm that will suffer it. Because once there is lawlessness, if there is anarchy, it is the government that will suffer. They won't be unable to rule. So it behoves on them to ensure that things are in order. If court gives decision, if they are not comfortable with it, there is a procedure for correcting it. They don't have to take the laws into their hands and say, we are not going to obey court orders. So it is completely wrong. It is improper. In fact, I must say that it's a mark of irresponsibility for the government, executive arm of government, not to obey court orders. They have the responsibility to execute orders of courts.
And just before we go, a recap of some of the news from the courts.
We'll begin with the report that the Supreme Court has affirmed the elections of 4 governors. In a unanimous judgment of a 7-man panel led by Justice Olabode Rhodes-Viver, the court upheld the elections of the governors of Abia, Delta, Niger, and Taraba State after listening to separate appeals challenging the outcomes of the elections in their state. For Abia State, the Supreme Court affirmed the election of Governor Okezie Ikpeazu. In a judgment delivered by Justice Paul Galinje, the court held that the appellant, Mr. Alex Oti, did not establish his claims of overvoting. To prove this allegation, the court said there are crucial documents which the appellant must tender, but which he failed to do. For the Apex Court, Mr. Oti merely dumped forms EC8A and EC8B before the court and did not call any witness to prove his allegations of overvoting. For Delta State, the court held that the appellant, Mr. Great Ogboru, failed to prove allegations of overvoting, which he made in his case against Governor Ifeanyi Okowa's victory. The appellant had argued through his lawyer that a total of 411,000 votes were accrued to the governor in error in 15 local government areas. The Supreme Court held that the appeal was a waste of the court's precious time. Also, the Supreme Court affirmed the re-election of Mr. Darius Ishaku of Taraba State. In a unanimous judgment, the court held that the appeal was an academic exercise since the governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress was disqualified from participating in the elections. Counsel to the APC had told the court to replace the disqualified candidate with the first runner-up at the party's primary and order a rerun election in the state. According to the court, the law is clear that once a candidate is disqualified, votes cast for him are wasted votes. The Supreme Court concluded the day's proceedings by upholding the election of Governor Abubakar Bello of Niger State. The court said it lacked jurisdiction to hear the appeal because there is no judgment emanating from the Niger State Election Tribunal since it was cut up by the 180 days stipulated by law for a tribunal to hear an election matter. With this judgment, the Apex Court has brought to an end controversies surrounding all of these elections.
And that's the program this week. Many thanks for watching. Be sure to catch the repeats on air or watch via our YouTube channel. I am Shola Shieli. Many thanks for watching.